There is a legendary masterpiece that rules the world, but loses its power only in Korea. That is Star Wars. On the other hand, Harry Potter, which arrived later, became a massive syndrome here and received nationwide love. Both are fantasy giants. So why do Koreans love wands more than lightsabers? I analysed the 5 reasons through a uniquely Korean perspective. The first reason is the timing of when the movie arrived specifically, the historical context. Star Wars was first released in the 1970s. Back then, South Korea was a developing country struggling to just put food on the table, let alone watch movies. For a fantasy fandom to form, the enthusiastic, supportive teenagers is essential. They grow up, buy the merch, and eventually pass that love down to their children. But Korean teens in the 70s couldn't afford to enjoy Hollywood movies. Without that original fandom establishing itself, interest in the sequels naturally faded. In contrast, Harry Potter arrived in the late 90s and early 2000s. Initially as books, right when the Korean economy was booming and cultural consumption was exploding. At that time, Korean parents, who were obsessed with education, bought the books saying, "I don't care if it's a fantasy novel, just read something." The kids thought, "I hate reading, but this is actually fun," and naturally fell in love with it. The second reason is a very critical difference: familiarity. The main setting of Harry Potter is Hogwarts School. Entrance ceremonies, dorm assignments, exam stress, walking on eggshells around strict teachers. Aside from the magic, it looks exactly like the daily life of a Korean student. So, it was incredibly easy to immerse ourselves in it. But what about Star Wars? It centers around complex political stories like the Galactic Republic, the Imperial Senate, and the Trade Federation. Koreans already see enough, fighting politicians on the news every day. They didn't want to watch complex political battles in a space movie. The third reason is the specific genre. Star Wars is a space opera set in the cosmos. Strangely, this genre really struggles in Korea. Even Star Trek, the rival of Star Wars, is only watched by a few hardcore maniacs here. When it comes to space, Koreans prefer hard sci-fi, with a documentary feel, like The Martian or Interstellar. Korean audiences love having their intellectual curiosity satisfied while watching movies. The Interstellar craze and the IMAX sellouts prove this. To Koreans who ask, does this make scientific sense? The Star Wars concept of flying around space, using the Force might have felt a bit childish. On the other hand, The Lord of the Rings succeeded purely on overwhelming film quality. The Western fantasy setting was unfamiliar, but the massive scale of the war scenes which was technically unimaginable at the time satisfied the Korean love for spectacle. The fourth reason is a very realistic one: visuals and action speed. To be honest, the golden trio in Harry Potter, or Legolas, in Lord of the Rings fit the typical flower boy or pretty girl style that Koreans love. They swept up a massive female fandom. However, Star Wars protagonists like Luke Skywalker or Yoda were a bit far from the Korean standard of beauty. It's the same with action. In the 70s and 80s, Korean men already had high standards thanks to the fast and flashy. Hong Kong martial arts, films of Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, to their eyes. The classic Star Wars lightsaber duels probably looked slow, buzzing, and a bit like toy fighting. The fifth and final reason is a unique Korean sentiment: Jeng affection, bond. Harry Potter is the coming-of-age story of a wizard boy who loses his parents to a villain, is abused by his uncle, but overcomes adversity. This is the classic poetic justice good triumphs over evil narrative that appears in almost every Korean drama. On the other hand, Star Wars mixes Western mythological elements with the philosophical concept of the Force, which didn't click intuitively. Fortunately, by the time Lord of the Rings came out, Western fantasy games like Lineage and Diablo were popular in Korea, making concepts like orcs and elves familiar, which lowered the entry barrier. 2000's PC RPG game play screen, pixel art style, with HP bar and user interface. Knight fighting against Green Orc Warrior, retro aesthetics. Personally, having once admired Western culture, I still love and watch series like Star Wars and Dune. I hope that Star Wars, the national movie of America, will one day be properly recognized and loved here in Korea as well.